Hey everybody. Welcome to the super fast Instagram Q&A. Let's get started. Super fast Instagram Q&A. Do you love me, bro? Please, bro. What do you think of barbershop harmony? I think it's pretty sweet. And most of it's built around dominant 7th chords, but not ones that sound like this. Instead, the person singing the 7th sings it a little bit lower in pitch than you would normally expect. Barbershop singers tune by ear to try and get the harmonics aligned to get that harmonic 7th. That 7th matches the harmonic series a little bit closer. It's part of the reason why barbershop harmony sounds the way that it does. What is the name of this chord progression, if the name exists? 4 minor, flat 7, 7, 1 major. Jazz musicians call that a backdoor 2-5 progression. In the key of C, we have F minor 7 and B flat 7, which are a 2-5 in the key of E flat, but in this case, they resolve in the back door to C6-9. All right. If you know what I mean. How about the musical you wrote in 24 hours? Yeah, so last June, I took part in something called the 24-hour musical. Hey, I'm headed to the meet and greet for the 24-hour musical, where a bunch of Broadway musicians and composers and actors get together and write and produce and perform 4 brand new musicals over the course of 24 hours. So I just got out of the production meeting where a bunch of the actors shared silly props. Composers are gonna take inspiration from that. They're gonna write overnight while I'm sleeping. It was an absolutely insane experience. I worked on the copyist and arranging team that was led by none other than Mr. Zach Zinger himself.
At 6 a.m., everything written.
Okay, it's 3:12 on Monday morning. Today's gonna be magical. Our job was to show up on location and transcribe composers' demos, which they had just finished writing, and turn that into readable sheet music for the band and the MDs to perform later the next day. I'm supposed to have done everything by now, and everything's not done. We have 3 musicals done. 1 yet to be tackled at all. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. From there, I helped the MDs rehearse and get all the sheet music all organized. So, just finished rehearsal. Starting to hurt right now. That could have gone smoother. And then later that afternoon, I started rehearsals as a bass player in the pit orchestra for the musicals.
At 46, Adam, can you do a walk up there?
46?
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. We rehearsed all afternoon, and then finally that night on no sleep whatsoever. I'm absolutely delirious. We performed those 4 musicals. As you can tell, I vlogged everything, but I didn't turn it into a full gig vlog because the final audio was not very good, and honestly, that sometimes happens. It's done. I can finally sleep now. But yeah, if you ever get the opportunity to try and write a musical in under 24 hours, take it, because it is a wild ride. If I put an SM57 in my mouth, does that make it an SM58? Good joke. Funny. Can you make music with chords which are not major or minor? I mean middle. Example, D, F half sharp, A. Yeah, normally you name chords based on their thirds. So this is a major third from D to F sharp, so D major chord. Minor third from D to F, so this is a D minor chord. So what happens if we play a third that's in between F and F sharp? Well, let me retune real quick. I give you a D neutral triad. We got a neutral third in between D and F half sharp.
What makes a man turn neutral?
To me, the sound doesn't know whether or not it's major or minor. Listen, is it major? Is it minor? It's a pretty aggressive sound to me. I'm not sure if I really like it. I think it's kind of an acquired taste, even among the most ardent microtonalists. We're so encultured to think of this minor-major duality, and when they blend, we don't know what to make of it.
With enemies, you know where they stand, but with neutrals, who knows? It sickens me.
So it's kind of like a car horn, right? I guess you could find use for that. Do you ever feel unmotivated to practice sometimes? If you do, how do you get over it? Normally my practice is focusing on upcoming performances, and there's no greater motivator than not looking stupid on stage. But all the gigs are gone, and honestly for me, I try and find things that are way outside my comfort zone. Just something totally different. Like how about this? Practicing Charlie Parker solos on a ukulele. Let's go. All right, here we go. Something like that. I actually just kind of got lost a little bit in that, which kind of goes to show whenever you kind of remove your normal routine, there is the chance that you will get lost in your practice a little bit more than if you just kept doing the same thing over and over on your instrument. Clearly, I'm not a ukulele player, but I find the most inspiration through things that are different. So when I eventually go back to start practicing my main instrument, things feel fresher and I feel a lot more permission to just seek out the things that I find most interesting. If two of the same instrument play the same thing at the same time, is it double the loudness? Actually, no, which is kind of interesting because it goes counter to our intuition. Intuition. Good words. It goes contrary to our intuition. Loudness is a psychoacoustic phenomenon, and there's actually a lot of factors which go into the perceived loudness of a sound. So the perceived loudness of two instruments playing the same note at roughly the same dynamic level won't actually be that much different than a single instrument. It's kind of an interesting phenomenon, and it actually affects a lot of orchestrational decisions. It's why orchestras have so many string players. If it did double every time, the strings would be absolutely deafening, but it doesn't. Favorite version of the intro song to The Wire, seasons 1 through 5. Oh yes, I am that guy. I am that guy who won't shut up about The Wire and how it is the greatest television show of all time, and you're racist if you don't like it. Part of what makes The Wire great is the fact that there's a different intro song for every season that reflects the themes of that season. For me, I think season 4's theme song is my favorite. Season 4 has kids singing the intro song, and season 4 is all about the Baltimore public school system and the kids who go through it and are affected by the failings of it. If you haven't watched The Wire, you should watch The Wire. Apologies again for being that guy. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. Why transcribe? Well, think about how children learn natural language. They transcribe the adults around them, the masters of the craft of language, and they learn by imitating them. I think it's important to think about music in a similar way. Try and imitate masters of the craft on your instrument just by ear, and through enough repetition, and time spent listening, you'll be able to embody that music more. I think learning songs and solos by ear is just one of the most important things you can do as a musician. How do you transport instruments like drums and organs overseas? If you need organs transported, I got a guy. Are the modes of the melodic or harmonic minor scales ever used in music? Yeah, over dominant 7th chords, jazz musicians will often play the 4th mode of the melodic minor scale, sometimes called the Mixolydian sharp 4, or Mixolydian sharp 11, or Lydian dominant, or Lydian flat 7, or overtone scale. Yeah, there are a lot of names for it. Sounds kind of nice. Thoughts on fingerstyle guitar, a la Drew Visvanath, John Gomm, Nick Johnson, etc. I'm glad you mentioned Drew. We were hanging out with him a lot on Sungazer's India tour, and he's a fantastic acoustic guitar player who incorporates a lot of percussion in his playing. This kind of acoustic percussive guitar that him and John Gomm and Nick Johnson and others have worked out, I think sounds really cool. It doesn't feel like a gimmick when you see somebody do it live. It sounds and feels like a necessary part of the performance. How helpful is high school music theory in the long run? The thing with high school music theory is that it's all from the common practice, which is basically classical music before 1900, and if we're gonna be honest, before 1850. So you're learning the mechanics of a very narrow slice of Western music history. But that doesn't mean that some of the underlying technical information won't be useful for you. I mean, things like knowing all the diatonic triads in every key will be immensely useful for you in your career. So Yeah, you're learning classical music theory, but there's some good stuff in there. How to develop a strong inner pulse. Counting. I think that counting and moving your body is a very, very useful way of internalizing pulse. My bandmate Sean Crowder has some great videos on how to count while you're playing your instrument. Definitely go check those out. I think it's a very, very useful skill to have. Do you think about theory when you improv, or does it come naturally through your play style? Well, no, I'm not having conscious thoughts of individual notes or even scales. I talked a little bit about this in my TEDx talk. Think about when you're talking with another person. Are you consciously thinking of every word as you say it? Improvisers develop a vocabulary that's embodied so that you don't have to think about each individual note as you're playing it. That would be absolutely impossible. What's tricky is that it takes a lot of time to fully embody a new concept that you might be able to understand intellectually, but your body doesn't quite understand yet. It took me so long to be able to improvise in 5/8. This is a clip that I posted over at Instagram, and I'm not consciously thinking about the subdivisions of 5/8 the same way that I would when I'm practicing. The notes would be going by so fast. Instead, I practiced these patterns at a much slower speed for years and years and years. It just takes that long. This is why practice is important. I want to emphasize this because I really don't like the phrase here, naturally through your play style. Things come naturally through many years of practice. Did this question make it into the Q&A video? Yep. How to follow the groove and not the melody as a classical pianist who plays jazz. Love from France. Pay close attention to the kick drum as well as the snare drum, and when you're playing, listen to the relationship between kick and snare. This will really get you into the groove of things. Why bass? Bass is the foundation on which music is built. And as a bass player, I can bully musicians into doing whatever I want to do, and they can do nothing about it, so sucks to be them. What kind of gear do you use to play 808 live? A computer, a Moog, both? Thanks a lot. When Sungazer plays live, we use acoustic drum triggers on the kick drum to trigger a sample of an 808 in Ableton Live. Moog synthesizers, like the one back there, to me sound very different from 808s. They sound great, but from my experience, using some kind of computer sampler is honestly just the easiest way of doing it. How has being a YouTuber prepared you for quarantine versus primarily gigging live musicians? Well, I've had a couple of tours canceled, one in March with Aberdeen and one in April with Sungazer, so that has sucked. But since I have YouTube and Patreon, thank you so much, my career hasn't suffered all that much, but honestly, it's not very good right now for live musicians who rely on touring and restaurant and bar gigs and corporate on wedding gigs for their income. All the gigs are gone, honestly, and that sucks. It's not a good time to be a musician right now. And a lot of musicians are turning to social media content creation, which you, Carlos, of Insane in the Rain Music, know all about, as well as Not Really Ibe. This isn't really a replacement, though, for all those gigs lost, because it takes a long time for this to become a career. So I don't mean to sugarcoat it, but it's bad for musicians right now, unfortunately.